Joker 1 was an absolute hit. It won 2 Oscars, was nominated for Best Picture, got great reviews, people loved it, and it made over $1 billion. It became the highest-grossing R-rated movie ever, at least until Deadpool and Wolverine came along. Joker's sequel should have been a hit too, but it wasn't. Joker 2 is a complete flop. The critics hate it. People hate it. Casual moviegoers didn't even want to go to the cinema to watch it. It had the worst second weekend box office drop in superhero movie history, and it's going to cost Warner millions. It's not even going to make a third of what the first movie made in the box office. But how is that possible? Joker 2 had a bigger budget than the first film. They hired more and better actors. They kept the same creative team from the first movie, and director Todd Phillips had complete freedom to do whatever he wanted. If anything, it should have been better and more successful than the first movie. Well, there are 4 reasons that explain why Joker 1 was a hit and Joker 2 bombed. The first reason is reviews. Joker 1 had its first screening at the Venice Film Festival, where many movies aimed at specialized critics are shown. The reviews were extremely good, so much so that it won the Golden Lion, the highest honor at the festival. And some critics even said it was going to be an Oscar contender, which ended up happening.
Congratulations, you're a prophet.
This was super important because the buzz around Joker 1 was very positive from the get-go. People were excited to go to the theater thanks to these comments. And sure, some comic book readers were a little skeptical. This was going to be a Joker origin story without Batman and without any connection to the DCU, which was still going in 2019. But when the movie hit theaters, word of mouth was positive. It had nothing to do with the comics, but the story was well told, the direction was good, and Joaquin Phoenix's performance was excellent. Since the movie was great, people left the theater happy and recommended it, and both the critics and audience's opinions were aligned. With Joker 2, it was quite the opposite. Warner showed the movie at the Venice Film Festival again, expecting it to get a reception similar to the first one, but this time, the reviews were mixed. Some critics gave it a standing ovation, but several who had enjoyed the first film said that Joker 2 was horrible. They didn't even say it was just a tiny bit below expectations. They said it was pure crap, so the conversation around Joker 2 was very negative, even before the movie hit theaters.
Too bad, too bad.
Fans of the first movie didn't rush to their nearest theater to buy a ticket. They waited for others to go and see if it was worth spending any money on Joker 2. And when all the YouTubers, influencers, and the entire world said the movie was even worse than what the critics had said, all these people decided to stay home. That's why the second week box office drop was so drastic. The reviews were so bad that no one wanted to go to the theater. But wait, every year we see movies that get torn apart by critics and still do well at the box office, like Fast and Furious or Michael Bay's Transformers, which always got bad reviews. And having good reviews doesn't guarantee a box office hit either. Transformers 1 is the best Transformers movie ever, and fans loved it, but it was a complete box office bomb.
That's not fair!
That's where the second reason comes in. Joker 2 changed genres. It's a musical, and the first movie wasn't. I know Arthur had a special connection to music because he danced in the stairway scene, but there weren't entire scenes where everyone suddenly started singing and dancing, which is what happens in musicals. Joker 1 was a drama and a character study, led from start to finish by Joaquin Phoenix, not a musical. But what's the problem with that? Hollywood wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for musicals, and there's not a single person on the planet who doesn't like music. But this is a genre that's out of fashion, and people just don't like these types of movies anymore.
I'm afraid I'm gonna need proof.
Oh.
Earlier this year, a sort of sequel to Mean Girls came out. Your girlfriend probably wanted to see it, since the first one was part of her childhood. But the studio hid in all the trailers that it was going to be a musical inspired by the Broadway show, because they knew people wouldn't go to the theater if they knew the truth. What ended up happening was that people showed up to the theater completely deceived, and when the girls started singing, they left as fast as they could. Despite the movie's quality, the word musical scares people away. A lot of us feel like it breaks the illusion when suddenly everyone starts singing and dancing, and it's very hard to convince people to see this kind of films, unless they get really good reviews like Wonka or La La Land. But even in those cases, I've read tons of comments from people saying they enjoyed those movies, despite them being musicals.
I'm not gonna watch it.
Warner doomed Joker 2 from the moment they announced it was a musical. I have friends who are fans of the first movie, but as soon as they heard there would be singing in the sequel, they said no way they were going to the theater. They didn't want to watch Joker and Harley singing and dancing for 2.5 hours. And I don't blame them, because I don't like the genre either. The third reason is they tried to subvert expectations, but it didn't work. Joker 1 had a very clear premise. We were going to see the origin story of one version of the Joker, with a pretty serious and depressing tone. Todd Phillips said right from the start that Batman wasn't going to show up, so no one expected to see a Batman cameo, or a post-credits scene where Joker connected with Nolan's Batman. We were sold on the idea of seeing how a man went insane and became the Joker. That was it, and we were happy because that's exactly what we got.
I got what I wanted.
But Joker 2 was different. This time, we wanted to see see Joker being the Joker. We didn't want to see Arthur feeling sorry for himself or suffering because society wouldn't let him be who he really wants to be. We needed to see Joker wreaking havoc in Gotham, setting Arkham on fire, and breaking Harley Quinn's mind so she'd become obsessed with him and abandon all her values. Joker 2 didn't need to redeem the Joker or make him an anti-hero. They just needed to show the clown going wild across the city or planning an escape from Arkham. I wasn't even expecting any connection to any version of Batman. We weren't asking for much, but they gave us none of what we wanted. From the first scene in Arkham, it's clear that Arthur is no longer the Joker. He's depressed again. Everybody laughs at him. He's constantly manipulated, and he suffers all kinds of abuse, just like in the first movie. It's not until an hour and a half into the movie that we see him dressed as the Joker, but the twist is that the clown never really existed. Arthur only pretended to be the Joker because it made him feel seen, but he doesn't want to be that person anymore.
That's crap!
We don't see the Joker killing anyone. We don't see him escaping Arkham. He doesn't become a mob boss, and he doesn't even manipulate Harley Quinn. This time, she is the one manipulating him. Todd Phillips goes out of his way to make Arthur look terrible. He tells us Arthur is a virgin. We see how he literally can't get it up. They do things to him that I can't even mention on YouTube, and in the end, he's killed by some random guy. You wanted to see Joker? Well, too bad. You're going to see Arthur being pathetic and having the most anticlimactic ending ever. This is called subverting expectations. In English, giving us the opposite of what we want. It's what happened in The Last Jedi with Luke, who didn't act the way fans expected. And it can be done right, like in Vinland Saga. The first season is a typical Viking story about revenge. It has a lot of violent battles, but season 2 is a critique of all that violence. The protagonist becomes a pacifist. They subvert our expectations of seeing more and more violence. But it works because the message is strong and the characters are perfectly developed.
Perfection.
That doesn't happen in Joker 2 because the message is weak and the character development isn't convincing. It's no wonder people felt disappointed and that the whole movie felt like a waste of time. And we're left with the fourth reason, the most important one. Joker 2 is an unnecessary sequel that should never have existed. Many fans said this since the film was announced because the beauty of Joker 1 was not knowing what really happened and what scenes were part of Arthur's imagination. A sequel would ruin that mystery. And on top of that, we weren't going to see Joker facing Batman because in this universe, Bruce Wayne is still a kid. Todd Phillips himself said he had no intention of making a sequel. He conceived Joker as a standalone movie, but Warner saw that Joker 1 made over $1 billion and rushed to make a second one for the money.
I like money!
But we have to remember, all of Hollywood's projects are made for the money. Warner didn't make Joker 1 thinking they were going to lose money. It's not like the company executives woke up one day and decided to give a random director a vanity project to lose $100 million. Everything is made for money. And the history of cinema is full of sequels that weren't planned from the start but turned out great, like Blade Runner 2049, Inside Out 2, or Toy Story 2, or Toy Story 3, or Toy Story 4. I didn't want to parrot the idea that Joker 2 was unnecessary, because if the story was good, it would justify its existence, just like all the other movies I just mentioned. Inside Out didn't need a sequel, but the second film adds to the first one, introduces more characters, and we see how the protagonist continues to grow. That's why people rushed to the theaters to watch it, and the movie became the biggest hit of the year.
Great!
But Joker 2's case is different. This movie has nothing to tell. It feels like they're trying to rob us blind, taking advantage of the fact that the first movie made $1 billion. It doesn't add anything to the Batman mythos or to Joker's story. It doesn't even tell us anything interesting about Arthur Fleck. Half of the movie is flashbacks and references to the first one, like they couldn't come up with anything original. And the only scene worth watching on YouTube is the opening, which has a Looney Tunes style. The last scene could have been an alternate ending to the first movie, and it wouldn't make a difference. This is the key point. Nobody asked for Joker 1, but the movie wasn't a waste of time. They gave us an interesting origin story for the Joker, and they told us stuff we didn't know about the character. It expanded the Joker mythos, even though at some points it contradicted the comics. Nobody asked for Joker 2 either, but they gave us nothing worth watching. You don't need to see this sequel, but don't be fooled. Just because Joker 2 is a flop doesn't mean people are tired of these kinds of projects, or that they don't want to see superhero stories anymore, because superhero fatigue doesn't exist. We prove it in this video over here.
You want some proof?